participants were asked to choose an everyday behavior that they wanted to turn into a habit. They all chose something they didn't already do that could be repeated every day. Many were health-related. People chose things like eating a piece of fruit with lunch and running for 15 minutes after dinner. Each of the 84 days of the study, they logged into a website and reported whether or not they'd carried out the behavior, as well as how automatic the behavior had felt. As we'll soon see, acting without thinking, or automaticity, is a central component of a habit. So, here's the big question. How long did it take to form a habit? The simple answer is that on average, across the participants who provided enough data, it took 66 days until a habit was formed. And contrary to what's commonly believed, missing a day or two doesn't much affect habit formation. The complicated answer is more interesting, though. Otherwise, this would be a short book. As you might imagine, there was considerable variation in how long habits took to form depending on what people tried to do. People who resolved to drink a glass of water after breakfast were up to maximum automaticity after 20 days, while those trying to eat a piece of fruit with lunch took at least twice as long to turn it into a habit. The exercise habit proved most tricky, with 50 sit-ups after morning coffee still not a habit after 84 days for one participant. Walking for 10 minutes after breakfast, though, was turned into a habit after 50 days for another participant. In the graph they made from the study, it was found that there was a curved relationship between repeating a habit and automaticity. This means that the earlier repetitions produced the greatest gains toward establishing a habit. As time went on, these gains were smaller. It's like trying to run up a hill that starts out steep and gradually levels off. At the start, you're making great progress upwards, but the closer you get to the peak, the smaller the gains in altitude with each step. For a minority of participants, though, the new habits did not come naturally. Indeed, overall, the researchers were surprised by how slowly habits seemed to form. Although the study only covered 84 days, by extrapolating the curves, it turned out that some of the habits could have taken around 254 days to form, the better part of a year. What this research suggests is that 21 days to form a habit is probably right, as long as all you want to do is drink a glass of water after breakfast. Anything harder is likely to take longer to become a really strong habit, and in the case of some activities, much longer. Dr. Molt and his cheerleaders weren't even close, and all those books promising habit change in only a few weeks are grossly optimistic. Of course, this study opens up a whole new set of questions. The participants were only trying to adopt new habits. What about our existing habits? How much better might they have done using tried and tested psychological techniques? And this study doesn't really tell us what a habit feels like, how we experience it, or where it tends to happen. What do we actually do all day long? Some busy days slip by in a flash, and we remember little. Whether at work or idling around at home, it would be fascinating to know exactly how our time is spent and which parts are habitual. Unfortunately, there's a very good reason why we tend to be awful at recalling habitual behavior, which is to do with its automaticity. So psychologists use diary studies, which give a much more accurate picture of what people are up to than we can get from memory. In one study led by habit researcher Wendy Wood, 70 undergraduates at Texas A&M University were given a watch alarm. Every hour, while they were awake, it reminded them to write down what they were doing, thinking, and feeling right at that very moment. The idea was not just to build up a list of activities, but to see the context in which they occurred. Across 2 separate studies, the researchers found that somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 the time, people were engaged in behaviors that were rated as habitual. This suggests that as much as half the time we're awake, we're performing a habit of one kind or another. Even this high figure may well be an underestimate, since it's based on only young people whose habits haven't had much of a chance to set.